This is Robert Marglace, the Mindshare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine, and welcome to our Ed Leaders and Legends Mindshare TV podcast in conversation with the extraordinary Ed leader, Jennifer Ferrari, the CEO of ERDI US, on their recent Leadership Institute in Palm Springs and the future of learning and innovation. Jennifer, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure, Robert. Thanks so much. And it was great to see you last week.
Well, quite a contrast for us weather-wise, you being in Chicago, me back in Toronto and back in the freezing cold, but that's what keeps us so youthful, I believe.
No, I hope that's the case. Yeah, it's very cold here.
Well, a little bit about Jennifer. She's a learning leader with an entrepreneurial mindset focused on ensuring bright futures for all students, advocating for and leading research and development efforts to promote and enhance quality public education for opportunities for all, supporting professional growth and development through rich dialogue and discourse, collaborative learning, and meaningful feedback, expertise in K-12 and strategic learning, leadership development, curriculum instruction, and PK and K-12 education markets, striving for deep impact through her leadership and collaboration between district and industry leaders. She's a graduate of Loyola University in Chicago with an EDD in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. Wow, you've done a lot in your short career, Jennifer. Kudos to you for that, and kudos to you for a very successful ERDI conference in Institute in Palm Springs. Perhaps you can share a little bit about the organization for the benefits of those who aren't familiar with it.
Sure. Well, I've had the great pleasure of being a part of ERDI since 2013, when I was a practicing education leader in the North Shore of Chicago. I was an assistant superintendent for teaching and learning. And then through that work, got to know the ERDI community very well and took over as its leader in 2019. So we've been through some interesting and exciting changes, particularly catalyzed by the pandemic. And in a nutshell, we're an almost 40-year-old organization that brings top leaders from both the industry as well as the district leadership side of the equation to come together to tackle big problems of practice. So things that are not surprising, things like student engagement, closing the opportunity gap, equity, mental health and well-being, and so forth. And we come together in a variety of different forums to really put our heads together and to help shape and influence products and services for the pre-K-12 arena. So it's a thrilling opportunity to have executives in the room really working synergistically to have a greater impact for public ed.
Thank you for that. And a little trivia for you. One of my first ERDIs was back in 1998, and I had the opportunity to meet the founder, Mike Neal, who our friend and colleague, legendary colleague of 50 years in EdTech, Kathy Hurley, had Mike speak at one of our sales conferences with the Learning Company back in the day. So I have a great appreciation for the organization and honored to be part of your expert network. Talk to me a little bit about the impact and some of the feedback that you've gotten at the recent. I know that one of the takeaways for me from some of the superintendents, they stressed the importance of relationships in education. And that was a real big takeaway for me, and the importance to be consistent in relationships and respect. There is a sense of understanding when it's the right time to connect and respecting the time that you should be getting in touch or not.
Sure. I would say in the crucible of the Institute, we try really hard to create a very natural and authentic way for people to genuinely talk and build those relationships. It's a pretty special place because it's the place where people really converge ideas, and in a protected space where time and reflection are afforded our leaders who are so busy, magic pretty much happens. I always felt like when I was a member of the Institute that I would arrive at the Institute in the future for a bit. And then you'd come back to your district a little wiser, a little more savvy on where the markets are going to go, where the trends are heading, and to just be a part of that dialogue among and between ed leaders and industry leaders. You just feel like you're learning from the collective because it's great brain trust. It's great mind sharing, as you put it.
Love that, Brian.
It's nice because it's a synergistic opportunity for people to really collaborate on products and services. We're all in this for the right reasons and for the same reasons, which is to help kids have meaningful and authentic opportunities for learning so that they have bright futures. And when business comes together with education and they actually connect in the middle, we're able to advance products and services way quicker and more effectively than we can in isolation. I always say, like, there's this all you got to do effect sometimes in the part of companies. And when they listen deeply to ed leaders who are in the seats and running school districts, their products and services are better titrated to meet the needs of kids.
Brilliant. And it's that those authentic conversations are so powerful and valuable in giving some of the ed tech companies as an example, and startups really uh, a deeper understanding. Sometimes they lack the pedagogical expertise. They may be engineers. A lot of the Gen Z and millennials want to make an impact,
Sure.
uh, and they don't necessarily have that pedagogy understanding. And that's where, and then the complexity of the system. There are a lot of moving parts in K-12 education, but there's a lot of success stories that have emerged as well from ERDI on both sides of the equation, whether it's the leadership progression and mentorship, if you will, and also from the industry side. So you've seen a tremendous evolution in such a short time. And talk to me about the impact, around COVID and how important your organization was during that period.
Yeah, well, it was really crazy because as I mentioned, I took over the leadership role in 2019, and we were just kind of getting our feet wet and running in some new directions, and then COVID hit. And this was a time where we weren't sure what was going to happen. We were all in the same boat. And so we rallied around the community. And at the point, we just kind of stopped the model. We're a convening organization. Our kind of bailiwick is bringing people together in physical spaces. And so we really just stopped what we were doing and brought the community together to problem solve like real issues that were happening. So everything from, gosh, I remember pulling folks from the West Coast and talking about, as COVID moved across the country, what to expect, how to use buses to deliver food services, and talking with John Welch and Susan Enfield, and just thinking deeply about how to get in front of this, down to how do we deal with proms and kindergarten step-up days in a pandemic. So it was just like we brought people together. And not too many months later, our companies came and said, gosh, we've designed more in the last 2 months than we have in 2 years. We need your help. Can you do something? And so we launched our virtual panel series, which ultimately kept us afloat in the pandemic. And I'm proud to say that we ran over 300 virtual panels throughout the pandemic to really help shape, influence the products and services that were nimbly kind of evolving through the pandemic. And I was always, so reticent to call upon our leaders in times that they've been, literally round the clock leading, but they were so loyal, and it just proved the power of the community. They stopped what they were doing and they offered their insights along the way. And I would say that a lot of our companies have credited us alongside many others, obviously, in the success that they've had throughout the pandemic. So it's pretty humbling and also a proud moment for our group.
Amazing. And the innovation doesn't stop there. You had a number of international companies and startups, a number from Canada. You forged a partnership with the Canadian Trade Commission in New York and LA. And so that was kind of cool to see, Canada well represented. And what was the impact and feedback?
Well, I would say it was nice to see, our brothers and sisters to the north coming to the U.S. to just learn the U.S. market and to be in that mix, learning kind of some of the nuances of our market. Obviously, there's bright talent that's coming out of it. They were part of an incubator or accelerator, and so they had to pitch to come to ERDI, and they were all super. They were very well prepared and bringing really bright products to market. We also had some folks from the UK. We had some folks from Australia. So it's neat to have this kind of international presence at the institutes that just broadens the perspective and helps people think more deeply about the ways that we can serve children.
And it really speaks to the power of the learning community, doesn't it? Because it continues beyond the institute, and the conversations are so rich and powerful, and the relationships that are forged.
Right. So obviously it's a networking opportunity because, again, it's protected space and time for deep conversation. It's such a gift. And our superintendents in particular often remark that it's a time to actually think, talk, collaborate, reflect, and then go home a little bit more wiser, a little bit more inspired, and just ready to tackle kind of the challenge that they're facing in their districts. So that networking piece is huge, but the real core of our work, obviously, is research and development. And so back to Mike Neal, back in the early days, he had this idea that if we could just put people in the same room to talk about products and services, that we'd have better outcomes. And he was right. So, we have the R&D panel, which is several hour conversation with education leaders and usually heads of companies to really kind of explore their own unique research and development agenda. I'd say there's 4 quick use cases that we tackle. Companies sometimes are coming to genuinely empathize with the ed leaders to say, what is it that you're struggling with in your districts? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? And deeply understanding the problems at hand. So that really helps them kind of kickstart their ideation process, if you were to think of it from like a design cycle. The next use case is that they have a really good product, that they are ready to go to market, and they're really using this time to fine tune and articulate their value proposition. Our education leaders are gifted at helping them articulate the value of the products and services, and the part that they bring to the table that's really unique is they have the educator speak. There's a vernacular in education that changes on the daily, so they really help them hone that message. The third use case is that companies are struggling. They have all the proof points, they've got the efficacy studies, they have the funding, and they're just not scaling. And sometimes it's a matter of languaging, other times they're pushing on the wrong attributes. Whatever the case may be, that third case becomes more of a problem-solving environment. And then the last use case, which we saw a lot of during the pandemic, is this idea that with data sets being so choppy and with like nothing being typical about sales cycles, they come to the table to really understand and kind of intuit where the market's going to go. What do they see the future looking like in terms of the way that their teachers, their principals, their coworkers are kind of leaning? And so it becomes a deep conversation. And I think that, even just the feedback, as you mentioned earlier, some of our companies walk away with a crystal clear vision, and others walk away understanding that they were pointing in the completely wrong direction and they're abandoning ship and going in a new direction. So it's real talk, and I feel exhilarated every time I'm in one of those panels.
Absolutely. And it's that ongoing feedback loop from one year to the next that's really important to build on that, and also the relationships that continue to evolve. You must have a long waiting list of superintendents who want to be part of the organization and participate, well as companies.
We do. We have over 400 districts right now represented, and obviously our institutes are intentionally kept small so it can become a very personable experience. But yeah, we have a wait list, but we bring real superstars to the table, people that I'm humbled to be around. Sometimes I pinch myself that I'm in the presence of such great thinkers. I always walk away really inspired.
Well, you as the quarterback of the organization are like an orchestra conductor, because you make it run so seamlessly with your awesome small and mighty teams. So kudos to you for that. And one of the things that struck me as well that I included in our recent Mindshare report is about the learning environments. We're in a modern learning environment here. I did my master's in EdTech at Pepperdine in Malibu, of all places. My family thought I was going through midlife crisis, but the impact of the environment, being Palm Springs, it really does inspire, and it really reinforced the importance of Jolene from Norville Nival and her learning company that provides furniture. She doesn't talk about the furniture; she talks about the whole concept of learning and learning spaces that are so critical. So the selection process must not be an easy process for you when you're looking at the next location.
No, we actually really kind of share that same mindset as our furniture friends that were with us at the Institute and the forum, is that place and space matter. So we try to create a really beautiful environment for people to genuinely engage, to take a deep breath, and to go all in on the conversation. It's interesting that you brought up Norva Nival. There were several great furniture companies with us at the Institute, and we tried something new this year, as you know, because you were there.
Right.
We did the Future of Schools Forum, and it really came out of a need that education leaders identified at the last Institute. And that was that with ESSER funding kind of changing directions and people spending a lot of their capital on capital improvements and buildings and spaces, we knew that we needed to support the ed leaders, but then also the vendors on that side of the thinking. And so we started this Future of Schools Forum. And it was thrilling. It was really focused around place and space, and how the actual space, like looking you behind you, how that becomes a third teacher. And if you use furniture and floor plan wisely, that actually enhances and enriches the classroom learning experience. So that was thrilling, and I think they got a lot out of that as well.
Well, speaking of learning environments, we were grateful to have you up in Montreal at McGill University, where we hosted our fall EdTech Leadership Summit. And how was that experience that took you out of your country for a
That
change?
was super. And that was my first time actually in Montreal. So it was extra special. Thank you again for hosting. Just to have that academic flair connected to the industry was great. And obviously to see the paper team there as alumni of that experience was really thrilling as well. And, just getting to meet real creative thinkers in a protected small space, and then to have that social time as well, really just takes you to the next level of what might be in education. So I enjoyed meeting Luke and Alex and his team at Vireo. They came out to the Institute as a result of that meeting. And thanks again for sending them our way.
Yeah, well, pleasure. But, it takes a village, and it's a global village at that, to
Sure.
raise a child in the 21st century. So kudos to you for nurturing that, and for being with us today on our Leaders and Legends of EdTech podcast series, Jennifer.
Thank you. Robert, I
Thank
wanted to
you.
tell you really quickly
Yeah,
about the symposium.
sure. Oh, right.
Is
Yes.
that okay if I just take one more minute?
Yes, absolutely. I forgot to ask that final
Yeah, no,
question.
that's
I'm
okay. This
sorry.
has become the highlight of my role.
Yeah.
Being an assistant superintendent for teaching and learning, kind of curriculum is my backdrop. I knew when we were at the Institute a couple summers ago that there was a real need to bring thought leaders together, not in an R&D or product and service kind of focus, but around a big problem of practice. And so we launched a couple years back the Thought Leaders Symposium, Systems Leadership for Equity. And this has become an ongoing effort as a large system to, again, put our heads together collectively to advance our work in leading for all kids. And so our first symposium was really about what is equity, where are we on this great continuum, and what are our next best steps as leaders on this journey based on our unique context. We don't ever claim to have the answers, but we do know the answers exist in our room when you're around the people that we're around. And I'm sure you experience that as well. The second Thought Leader Symposium was a much more narrow scope. It was, here's a framework for leading for equity, and here's how we approach it. Really doing a 360 look at our systems and the ways that we make decisions, how we hire, how we purchase, where we build. And then the third symposium, which we just had last fall, was really focused on the pipeline. We're all struggling with filling the seats of teachers and leaders in our systems. And so how do we actually explicitly support a really robust teacher and leader pipeline? And, the big aha from that was the best recruitment strategy is actually an awesome retention strategy. And so as we flip to spring, our next symposium coming up, again, this really thrills me, is going to be about supporting superintendents and district leaders in difficult times and going out more on the offense, and how do we help take control of the narrative? And at the same time, how do we build from the inside out to make sure that we have really strong retention and culture? So that's on the horizon.
Amazing. Well, and looking ahead, we'll be in DC in July, is it?
That's right. The 9th or the 8th through the 12th, and the 11th through the 14th.
Amazing. Well, we'll let you get back to your daily duties there, and perhaps shoveling a little snow later in the
Lots of snow.
evening. I miss the snow, and we miss the ice. We need cold. So being a hockey guy that I am, but grateful for your time again, Jennifer, and congratulations again on a successful institute in Palm Springs.
Thank you. And thanks so much for being a part of our expert network. You add a really great perspective, and you're a superstar. So thank you.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you again. That was Jennifer Ferrari, the CEO of ERDI US. My name is Robert Merlacci, the Mindshare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.mindshare Learning to get your latest issue. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.